Welcome to the Empathy Advantage podcast. I'm Karen Hall, the Queen of Empathy, and I'm also an emotional intelligence and leadership coach. And today, our guest is Nauri Kaur, and she is also an empowerment and leadership coach with over 15 years of experience in coaching professionals to help them build confidence, set goals, and develop a success-driven mindset. One of the interesting things about Nauri is that she has been in some very interesting situations where she has worked in aerospace, defense, and rail, where I know that you can imagine that there are a lot of very stressful situations where she has had to use the tools that she teaches to other people. So I know she has a lot of authenticity. As we have talked together, I have been so impressed with her energy and her warmth and the powerful way that she empowers leaders. So welcome to the show, Nauri.
Hi, yes, an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so tell us some more about you and about your background and what you have done to bring you to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a long-standing journey, really. Like you mentioned correctly, I started off my career in the corporate world, and I've actually been in that space ever since, almost touching on 20 years now. So always in really large, dynamic, and complex structures in terms of the organizations that I've worked in. But that really kind of led me to having the opportunity to be in a place where I can analyze and be a witness to so many different situations in terms of how people interact with each other, how people lead people, like what motivates people, what makes people ambitious about wanting to do more, and on the other side, what actually holds people back, what keeps them stuck, and how people can be their own worst critic often in life, and what the result of that can be. Also, before that and throughout that time, I was always a person that other people would come to, ask for advice, or simply just tell me their problems. And I started to realize quickly that, including all my friends and many family members, that I was a person that people can talk to. I was a person that's able to listen to others. I was a person that's quite grounded and is able to give sound advice. So, and I saw many unjust things happening as well. And that kind of led me to think I actually want to work with human behavior, with human psychology, positive psychology, and support people in their journey to empower themselves. Also, things that I went through in my life since childhood, where I felt things maybe should have been a little bit different in childhood, in my teenage years, and then even in adult life. But I always was a person who would persevere, highly resilient. That's the background I came from. So I was never a person that was going to give up. I was always a person that was like looking on the bright side and actually helping people, including myself, to solve problems rather than be a victim of problems. And that really led me into the coaching space, which I started in COVID, believe it or not. And since then, it's just grown. It's gone from strength to strength. I've connected with women from all over the world who are working in this space in different niches. I started my own podcast a number of years ago called Ladies Who Lead, and again, that gave me exposure to women who work in different areas, but all within helping women to lead, helping women to stand in their power, helping them to be authentic and speak up for themselves and live to their full potential. As well as that, obviously, I've been coaching many women from all over the world on a one-to-one basis in various different kind of spheres of empowerment, leadership, self-development, soft skills, all of that sort of stuff, and done lots of workshops online and face to face. So, I've done quite a lot, and juggling both, obviously having a corporate career as well as when I started this and continued this, it was difficult. But like I said, I was always a person who's not going to give up. If I wanted to do something, I would do it. And here I am.
And here you are, my goodness. Well, I want to go back a little bit to your childhood because a
Yeah.
lot of times when we have guests, my audience says, "Yeah, but I want to know more about what brought them to this and how did they even get interested in this?" And so you mentioned experiences that you had in childhood that you learned from. And so could you tell us more about your experience as a child and how you learned some of these soft skills that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. My own family dynamic, for example, my dad was well and is an entrepreneur, very focused on. Very ambitious, very motivated, but often he was kind of not around. So sometimes an absent father, but not deliberately. It was kind of he was so driven, and when he was there, it was almost like really seeking that attention from him, and he was kind of the leader of the household. My mom being more submissive, my mother, but a really like beautiful soul, like really soft soul, highly compassionate, highly empathetic, always wanting to help people before herself, always putting other people first, just general all overall kindness. So I observed those things in my parents, like one side, a high achiever, working extremely hard, putting your career first. And on the other side, somebody who's such a people's person, such a loving human being, so giving, so compassionate, like I said, but and very authentic, and a very nurturing person. So it was kind of mixed signals, but I was able to learn a lot of those soft skills that are instilled very much inside me from my mother, for example. Um, so it comes naturally when it's one of you're observing, you're actually absorbing your parents' behaviors and then mirroring them. I realized that I've actually got this natural muscle, which is called empathy, that not everybody has. And I realized that like quite sort of early on in my adult life, because I saw lots of people, like it's, everybody is driven by their needs. That's not an issue, but sometimes at the expense of somebody else, like that's when
Right.
it becomes a little bit hurtful or selfish. And I started to think, well, why? Well, how come I'm not thinking like that? How come I can think beyond myself? That is such a powerful thing to do. And often people can't do that till a lot later on in life, when they've really understood what life is, right? I feel like I had that skill from a very young age. But then I had also that highly driven mindset, that success mindset, that mindset where achieving your potential is absolutely necessary. Also, I was brought up in a highly masculine environment, only having brothers, being the only girl, and my father was, the brothers. I was a daddy's girl. It was a really complex thing, but they were very much okay, that's my future, my sons, and I will, like, my legacy will be continued through my sons. And I really questioned that, because I thought, well, there should be no difference, and actually I'm just as high achieving, just as capable, just as able to achieve things in my life as a guy, a boy would be. So I challenged that narrative, and that narrative doesn't necessarily come from my father. It's more of a cultural thing, because when I look at like a lot of relatives, and I look at people in my culture, that is very much the case, especially in the era that we were growing up. So I wasn't a person who was just going to take that lying down. I was always a person that would think about things in a deep sense and challenge them and try to change that. And so hence I grew into this person who was high achieving, just as achieving as my brothers, who've also done well. Um, and I kind of like my father was able to see that through me, and sometimes he said, "Oh, I wish you were my son." And I was like, "Well, actually, I can be just as great as your daughter. There's nothing less. You need to be able to see a daughter in exactly the same way." So I challenged that in my father. I've always been close with him, and actually now he has immense respect for me in the things that I've been able to achieve in my life. But these are things that we we don't choose how the dynamic of our upbringing is going to be. We don't choose how our parents think, what their beliefs are. We actually grow into it, and then we either accept it, which a lot of people do, and then later on maybe regret and think, well, why did I just give in to that? Why did I just live that narrative because it was what it was expected of me? Or actually look back and think, I'm so glad I challenged that, because it made me the person that I am. And I was able to help other people change their perspective and grow in the way that they thought. So for me, that was my parents, and then, like, say, the community. And then I was able to take that kind of growth mindset, that leadership mindset, that challenge, the person that goes and challenges the status quo, into places of work, into my communities, into my friendship circles, and be a person that could then inspire other people from my example. Because I was always well intentioned, like I always wanted the best for anyone around me, but I wasn't willing to accept things that I didn't believe to be true. And actually, that was in me from when I was a very young child. So that shaped me hugely in terms of the person that I was, and became and am today.
Yes, and for you
Yeah,
as a child to recognize, I have just as much to offer as a girl as my
yeah,
brothers do,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, and to recognize also that you could challenge that status quo. A lot of
yeah,
times, people have felt like that's just the way it is. There's a ceiling, there's nothing I can do. But you said
absolutely.
but you said, "Yes, there is something that I can do," and you were empowered from a very young age, which is fascinating to me. And so I want to delve more into using this where you were helping other people to change and to grow. And when you have been in some of these very high stress situations, I'll just take the rail, for example, or you could do any of them, defense, aerospace, whichever arena you would like to. Could you tell us a story about a very stressful situation where you were able to change that dynamic?
Yeah, so if I think about it in the work sense, often there's resistance and conflict. In these large organizations, we are in highly political environments, whether we like to admit that or not. There is so much more that's being done in organizations today about compassionate leadership, about like openness, understanding of other people's personalities, backgrounds, and complexities, right? Including things like neurodiversity. But back in the day, so if I look at earlier on in my career, I was around people who were putting a lot of energy into being defensive or needing to be right. So when we look at things like being assertive versus being aggressive, I witnessed some aggressive behavior, and that is really a lot of the times ego driven.
Mhm.
The need to be right, the need to be right at any cost, which means that sometimes somebody can get uh, like highly tempered, raise their voice, physically appear aggressive, although in a workspace it's very difficult to act on that. So I have actually witnessed situations like that. But the opposite of that is where I have seen people with, say, a growth mindset who are assertive rather than aggressive, where actually they have seen that there's a misalignment in expectations, that there is a tension, but rather than giving into that with aggression, they have actually listened to the other person's views. They have got to the root cause of why this person is feeling like that, or thinking that, or being defensive. That once you give somebody the space of respect, so I'm not saying what you think is wrong. I'm willing to listen to uh, what you're saying and where it comes from. That automatically gives the other person that respect element, and they're more likely to open up. That way, you're able to much quicker come into a place of common ground, and often
Right.
that can be to agree to disagree, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you need to argue it out or be aggressive to each other and let tensions rise. You can actually come up with a solution that is the best solution possible in that situation, and collaborate. And often, what I have noticed is when people challenge each other in a work environment, even if it can become a difficult conversation, having the correct courage to be emotionally intelligent in that moment, means that you can actually gain much more respect for each other. And often, if this is two leaders working in different stakeholder departments, for
Right.
example, they can then work together much, much more strongly in the future because they have developed that element of respect purely because they've been in a place of discomfort before that. Because that's when you really get to know somebody. Like they say, if you want to really know somebody, don't think about them when everything's perfect and going well and everything's happy smiles. Know them when they're under pressure. Know
Yeah,
them when they are challenged. Know them when they are not necessarily getting what they want. Then you will see the true character. If you work with that person, then you are able to build long-standing alliances, collaborations, and relationships. So
absolutely. This is very interesting what you're talking about because when the tensions are rising,
yeah,
oftentimes it triggers us. Our mirror neurons are activated because they're stressed and they're feeling agitated, and that can bring up things within us where we start to feel some anxiety. We start to feel some tension because we are regulating with their nervous system and that's affect their nervous system is affecting our nervous system. So could you
absolutely.
talk about some of the common emotional triggers that people face when dealing with difficult individuals?
Yeah, it's really difficult. Now, this can be in the workspace, but it can also absolutely be in our personal lives. It can be with family members. As we're growing up, we're trying to understand the complexities of our lives. It can be in like communities, in friendship groups. It can be in every different format. And usually, a big trigger is when people feel disrespected. And actually, Karen, more so for men than women, because women need to be liked. Essentially, they want to be liked or loved, and men want to be respected over and above everything. That's a key difference in the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, will we manage our emotions or what triggers us? For men and women, it is a little bit different because we are wired differently. So if somebody feels disrespected, man or woman, especially a man, then that can really trigger them. Really trigger them. Also, if we feel like we are being unheard or we're being blamed from something or mismanaged, for example, in a workplace. So somebody's not listening to you, or they're misinterpreting what you mean, or they're kind of overshadowing you or bypassing you. These things can really trigger somebody's confidence and self-esteem, and really cause hurt. And often people don't voice it. They can act defensive. They can be hugely frustrated, and a lot of the times I feel like when people don't have the confidence to speak up for themselves, they can withdraw. Withdrawal is a very big way that people use to actually alleviate themselves from the pain of like the whatever the trigger is, where it's a difficult situation or a difficult conversation. So in these situations, emotional intelligence helps by being self-aware, managing our own reactions into as they emerge. So knowing that actually this is not my fault. Like when we become emotionally intelligent, we can really detach ourselves in terms of self-blame or self-criticism, because we can understand and see that where something is coming from which angle. Like it can often be somebody else's insecurity, but when you become emotionally intelligent, you are not as affected by it. So you don't consume it and make it your own story. You don't make it about you. You are able to self-regulate those emotions, and you can pause before responding. Like they say, the moment between the stimulus, which is when the moment between the stimulus and your response, is where your power lies, and that's what
Absolutely.
and that's what emotionally intelligent people are very aware of. So they can confuse people because they don't react, and the other person who's triggering them may want the reaction, so it gives them more bigger space to then be even more destructive. But emotionally intelligent people do not give in to that. They can often even very quickly reframe the situation, and stay very calm. They don't internalize, and they can like their emotion, therefore their emotional response is reduced. So this is the difference between like being emotionally intelligent and not emotionally intelligent. But those triggers are can still be there, the ones I mentioned earlier.
Right.
And yeah, they don't feel good. They don't feel good.
No, no, they don't. So I want to hear a story specifically about you when you were in one of these high stakes situation and emotions were escalating, and how you dealt with those emotions within you when you started to feel triggered. I want to hear about how you use these tools.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, yeah. So, like I said, I was kind of, I didn't even realize, but I was emotionally intelligent from a very young age. You know, I developed those skills, like I said, a lot from my mother. Uh, and it came natural to me because I witnessed my mother go through some unjust things in her life as well. But her reaction was still, she never lost her loving sense of self. She never lost her kindness, uh, and her, like I said, her empathy and the beautiful soul that she had. And when I was in any kind of difficult situation, I was also able to see beyond myself, see beyond what maybe somebody else, the way they were reacting to me, what they were saying to me, and rather than react and necessarily fight back, I was able to look at externally and think, well, where is this coming from in that person? So I was able to see potentially an insecurity on them, which they were then putting on me,
Yeah.
and that has happened before. It has happened.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can you give like a specific time, like a story specifically about you, like when you were dealing with it, not like in general terms, but like a time, a specific time this was pertinent for you?
yeah. Um, like say, like if I bring it back into a work context,
Yeah. Yeah.
so for example, if there was a team of people where I was maybe not treated fairly or equally, where somebody had maybe an issue. So I was in a male dominated environment, and there was another woman who was senior and a lot older than me, but she could see the potential in me as a young woman, right? And the fact that I could excel and maybe even exceed her position. So what she tried to do was try to demean me, try to take my confidence away from me, not give me opportunities where I could develop and self grow. And I was able to quickly notice this, and I was able to create a space whereby I could voice that with my colleagues, not only like in secrecy. I obviously spoke to HR, and I did it in a professional way, whereby and the thing is, I didn't be aggressive, I didn't fight back. What I did, and the best way to respond to something like this, if it happens to anyone at work, is I collected a couple of examples of where I was treated unfairly. So I actually journaled them, I wrote them down, so that if I went to somebody else with this issue, it was unquestionable, unquestionable. Um, and then I was able to other people noticed it as well. So and they actually said it themselves, that this is a little bit unfair. Like, I'm sure it's Nauri's turn, or Nauri can, why don't we put her forward? So by doing that, and going to the right avenue, which was HR, for example, I was able to get the relevant support in order to bring those examples to the person concerned. And she was obviously forced to change that behavior because it was no longer acceptable in that environment. So what I mean, what I'm trying to say and bring out in this like conversation, is that, again, I challenged it. I didn't accept it. I saw it. I didn't second guess myself. I didn't just give in on the first example and just say, okay, she's doing something wrong. I allowed a couple of examples to present themselves. So I myself had evidence in my mind that this is really happening. I then voiced it to get somebody else's opinion. Is this really happening, or is this just me? And then I took it to a place that was a professional way of dealing with this problem, whereby that person didn't feel threatened, but was presented with the examples, and that a situation was able to resolve itself. And even after that happened, I still wasn't aggressive or ignorant. I continued to be my happy, jolly, nice self to that person, because I always was of the kind of notion that you don't reduce yourself because somebody else tries to reduce you. you still stay the person that you stay true to yourself. So
Absolutely.
somebody else shouldn't be changing your personality. You don't match their level just because somebody else is doing this to you. So that's one example, and there's actually another example that I thought of while I was talking, is that it happened to me. I was actually bullied at work once as well. Again by another woman who felt threatened in the first week that I was there, and that wasn't my fault. And again, I went through the professional way of dealing with it. But in that instance, that person wasn't my manager. So after that, once it was resolved with that person, I just stayed out of their way, because I
Yeah,
didn't, in that situation, I didn't want to make amends. I just didn't want to be in the space where, or didn't want to entertain somebody who was able to do that to another person.
that's
So
interesting
I'm
because
very
it's
conscious. Yeah, I'm very conscious about a lot. Once you know people, and what they may be capable of, it's up to you to then distance yourselves from the wrong people and be surrounded yourself deliberately, intentionally,
right.
by the right people.
Well, we are out of time, Nari, but
Wow.
our time just flew by. Oh my goodness, this has been so amazing. But one of the things that you said that was very important, many times when we are in one of the situations where there's a conflict, we have to decide, is this something that we want to pursue, that we want to work through, that we want to stay? Or is this something where we want to exit? Do we want to stay out of that person's way, like you said with this woman? Or do we want to try and work it through directly with the person? Or do we need to get, an external source to be involved? And
Absolutely.
those were very interesting things. But the bottom line was, you didn't take it lying down, that you still said, no, this is not correct behavior. And yet, in that process, you did not internalize it to make it mean that there was something wrong with you. You had the emotional intelligence to still separate yourself from that, and then to deal with it in a way that served you and served your organization. And so I really enjoyed hearing those stories and those examples. And I wanted to thank you so much for being with us today. If someone wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to reach out to me directly is either by my email, which is Norikaur, NARIKAUR Norikauruk @gmail.com. Or the other way, and to get to know me better, send me a direct message, is on my Instagram profile, which is where I share all my socials, and that is Norikaur underscore Sky High Coaching.
Sky High Coaching. Oh, that is phenomenal. And I
Yeah,
really appreciate the way that you help people to tap into their emotional intelligence and to be able to make those connections, those collaborations, to be able to empower ourselves. And by so doing, we help empower our team that are around us. So thank you for being with us, Nari. This was wonderful.
thank thank you very much. It was great to be here.
We'll have to have you again because I have a lot more questions for
I
you.
know. I don't think I have a lot more to say by the sounds of it. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
We just barely scratched the surface. So thank you everyone for being with us today. We'll have to have Nari again. Thanks. Bye-bye.
You. Thank you.